In a functioning democracy, a free press serves a very specific purpose. It acts as an independent watchdog, designed to hold government power accountable and deliver objective truth to the public. But the end of World War II brought a different kind of conflict. The United States found itself facing off against the Soviet Union in an ideological struggle, watching as communist propaganda rapidly spread across Europe, Asia, and Latin America. This created an immediate problem for Washington. They needed a way to fight a global information war and push back against Soviet messaging. Yet building a massive, overt, state-run propaganda machine directly contradicted the democratic values they were supposedly trying to protect. In 1948, a newly formed intelligence agency found a way around that problem. A CIA officer named Frank Wisner proposed a simple, covert solution. Instead of building a new propaganda network, the agency would secretly co-opt the existing free press. By executing this plan, Wisner turned the very institution meant to scrutinize the state into a covert weapon operated by it. By the early 1950s, this operation, known as Operation Mockingbird, was penetrating the most trusted names in American news. The CIA built quiet relationships with reporters and editors at the New York Times, CBS News, Time magazine, and dozens of other outlets. The journalists involved fell into two distinct categories. Some were directly on the agency's payroll, knowingly accepting cash for their cooperation. Others were simply fed CIA-approved narratives and published them willingly, convinced they were performing a patriotic duty for their country. Wisner referred to his vast network of media contacts as his mighty Wurlitzer. Within this system, he prioritized foreign bureau chiefs stationed in Cold War hotspots. This diagram shows exactly how the Wurlitzer operated as a two-way information pipeline. On one side, these foreign posts gave the CIA cover to gather raw intelligence on the ground. On the return path, those same bureaus allowed the agency to route pre-written stories directly into the news desks of major American publications. Once those agency-authored pieces hit the printing press, they lost their government fingerprints. They looked indistinguishable from independent journalism. Through this system, the CIA successfully laundered state-sponsored propaganda. Millions of Americans sat at their breakfast tables every morning to consume what they believed was objective truth. The CIA expanded the network's mission to include domestic audiences, actively shaping how global events were portrayed on nightly news broadcasts. When the CIA orchestrated covert, violent regime changes in nations like Iran and Guatemala in the early 1950s, they needed the American public to view those actions favorably. Instead of reporting these events as the covert government overthrows they actually were, the Mockingbird network ensured the stories were framed as necessary defenses of freedom. The public was shielded from the reality of the regime changes. Soon, this influence campaign bled beyond daily newspapers. The agency buried unfavorable book reviews, influenced the production of documentaries, and funded academic think tanks to generate analyses that supported Cold War policies. The CIA engineered a comprehensive echo chamber. If a citizen read a newspaper, watched a documentary, or picked up a book, they were likely encountering a state-approved version of reality. This invisible partnership held together for nearly 3 decades. But in the 1970s, the absolute secrecy surrounding the operation began to unravel. Following a report by investigative journalist Bernstein, the Senate Church Committee, formed to investigate intelligence abuses after Watergate, began to pull back the curtain on the agency's media infiltration. This diagram illustrates the piece of hard data confirmed by the committee's investigation. At various points, over 400 American journalists had worked either directly or indirectly for the Central Intelligence Agency. The revelation that the nation's primary watchdogs were acting as state assets forced a confrontation with the reality of media independence. For 30 years, the very institution meant to hold power accountable had been a silent partner to it. Facing public backlash, CIA Director George H.W. Bush announced in 1976 that the agency would cease its infiltration of the media. But critics identified a loophole in Bush's new policy. The agency only banned the act of paying journalists for their services. This left the door open for voluntary cooperation to continue unchecked. To this day, historians and journalists debate whether Operation Mockingbird ended, or if it simply evolved into the subtler modern tactics we see today, like strategic government leaks and embedded reporters that blur the line between intelligence work and reporting. Operation Mockingbird stands as historical proof that a supposedly free press can be systematically co-opted, and that objective truth can be entirely engineered by those in power. If you found this story unsettling, that's exactly the point. History has a way of repeating itself, just with better disguises. If this blew your mind, hit like, subscribe for more declassified secrets the government tried to bury, and share this with someone who needs to see it.